So in our earlier class, we have taken up the Unix architecture as a case study. And in this Unix architecture, we mentioned the four mains, where the first one was the user, second one was the shell, third one was the kernel, and fourth one was the hardware. There we talked about how ls command is going to work, that is to accomplish the directory. After that, we were mentioning about this Unix schedulers. In Unix schedulers, the core operating system functionalities, that is, first one was long-term scheduling. Next one was medium-term scheduling. Third thing was short-term scheduling. So these are going to be operated at different instances, new state to the ready state, then to the running state, and then to the exit state. And between ready and running, we are going to have this waiting state. So that is how the process states are there. Now, the long-term scheduling, it is going to act as the ready queue. It is going to be acting at the ready queue. Next one, we are going to have the short-term scheduling. So short-term scheduling, it is going to act as the running queue here. And medium-term scheduling, it is going to act here in between this waiting, in between the running and waiting state, and between waiting state and the running state. We are going to have this waiting queue. And here we are going to have the medium-term scheduling. At this state, we are going to have long-term scheduling. And at this stage, we are going to have short-term scheduling. So these are the locations where we are mentioning. So when we are going to work in a multitasking atmosphere, when we are working on a multitasking atmosphere, we are going to have a round robin, or we are going to have some priority scheduling. So we can see here, these are all processes called as user jobs, and these we are going to have the system jobs here. And system jobs, they are going to be having the priority -4, -3, -2, and -1. And here we are going to see creation of a thread and etc. to parent process to a chain process. Then we are going to assume the user priorities. So priority scheduling is going to happen. So the priority scheduling, now it is initiated by long-term scheduling, medium-term scheduling, or the short-term schedule. So that is what we talked again, this in the earlier class itself. Next one, we are going to call it as booting here. So now you can see this process 0, then it is linked to some process 1, and daemon, where we are going to have the server, that is the complete functionality is going to happen in the daemon here, page daemon here. Then we are going to have terminals. So terminal, we can call it as cathode ray tube, and we can call it as a keyboard here. So we are going to call here as a monitor, and we are going to have a keyboard here. So the three things are going to happen in keyboard 1, keyboard 2, and keyboard 3. So we call here as terminal 0, we call it as terminal 1 and terminal 2. So one important thing you should distinguish here, it is going to implement the concept of multiprocessing, not multitasking here. It is going to have this multitasking here. So in multitasking, it is going to maintain the round robin, So in round robin, it is going to have a time quantum 2 milliseconds. So process P0 to process P1 to process P2. So it is going to move in this way here, and we can say it is centralized. We are going to call this one as centralized. So CPU will switch from terminal to terminal. CPU will switch from terminal to terminal, and how it is going to switch? It is going to switch in an atmosphere of multitasking. It is going to use the round robin architecture. There it is going to use the time quantum. In this way, booting of an operating system is going to happen. Next comes how a memory is going to handled in Unix operating system. Next challenge was how a memory management is going to happen in Unix operating system. So we will have page map table. We are going to call it as PMT. One end we are going to have the physical memory, and another we are going to have here the secondary memory. So if such is the case, now in the secondary memory we are going to have the virtual addresses, and in the physical memory we are going to have the physical addresses. Now at this point we are going to call here as page frames, and virtual addresses, they are going to have it as pages. Now we need to have a mapping between pages to page frames. There we need to map between pages to the page frames. So physical addresses, we are going to call it is in the random access memory, nor it is going to be in the part of main memory here. So process A, it is going to have some location in the physical memory. Similarly for process A. Similarly for process B also, it is going to have some allocation in the main memory. So this process we are going to call it as user space, and again this process we are going to call here as kernel space. So entire user data may not be fitted at a time in the physical memory. So we need to have some virtual memory. So virtual memory we are going to call it as illusion or false copy of physical or main memory. Nothing but the random access memory. So virtual memory is nothing but it is going to be done in the secondary memory, and it is creating an illusion that we are still working in the main memory and we are executing the tasks. That is regarding the illusion which is happening in this virtual memory. So coming to the system calls of the memory management, here we can see that. So we are going to have some address space. Yes, it is going to stands for some segment addresses, followed by some memory map here you can see. And here you can see unmapping. So mapping, just now I was telling, we are going to have a page map table, PMT. It is mapping the physical addresses to the virtual addresses. It is, we are going to have the page map table. We call here as page map table, PMT. And this it is going to map the physical addresses with the virtual addresses. For that we are going to call it as mmap. And to, okay, you have done, and now you don't need the addresses. Then we are going to say unmap the content. So here you can see the segment size, how much segment we are going to have. So if I am going to say it is 8086 microprocessor, then I am going to say segment KB. So segment, it is going to be some 64 MB. Either it can be a stack segment, it can be a port segment, it can be a data segment, nor it can be a extra segment, right? So all of them, the segment size is going to be some 64 MB. So we will be having the addresses. B stands for the base and the addresses, followed by how much length it is going to occupy. Next, the protection control bits, which it is going to have read access and write access, and we are going to have the data is set or not. For that, we are going to have some flag variables. Then we are going to describe about the file, and followed by the length of the total file it is going to occupy. So that is where this offset is going to come into picture. So again, the same word is going to repeat. The paging in Unix operating system. So here we can see this main memory. Main memory, it is going to have some page frames. Main memory, it is going to have some page frames. But as far as virtual memory is going to be concerned, it is going to have some pages. Virtual memory, it is implemented with pages, whereas main memory, it is implemented with page frames. So now we need some paging mechanism, we need some mapping mechanism, which it is mapping the physical addresses with the logical addresses or the virtual addresses, which it is going to be taken care with a page map table. So we are mapping this page. You can see this page frame 0, 1 and 2, etc. And then we are going to have disk blocks here. So when we are going to have this computer organization, you have to learn. So this one we are going to call it as tracks, and part of this we are going to call them as sectors. We are going to call them as some sectors. Now this sector, it is going to have some memory blocks here. We are going to have some memory blocks. So how is memory organized? Memory is going to be organized in tracks. Memory is going to be organized in sectors. What is the content of a track, or what is the content of a track? They are made up of disk blocks. So disk block is identified with a number, and that number we are going to call here as disk block number. Similarly, we need to have some index here. So what is index here? So index, it says which disk block is managed at which disk device, or which disk block is empty, or which disk block is free, or whether we can make a read operation or write operation. Similarly, some hash code over it. So we are going to have an index. So after this block, what is the next entry? After later on, what is the previous block? So I'm going to have this block here. So we'll call it as next here. Then we are going to call here as previous. So block, we will be mentioning the index here. So we are mentioning all those indexes. So again, we were mentioning text segment, data segment, code segment. So there they are going to be pointed out with some segments. So in microprocessor, it is going to be some 64 MB of segment size is going to be given. So these are all regarding the paging content. So this is a quick brush up of what was happening in the earlier thing. After this, now we are going to take up the third part of the case study Unix. So it is going to be dealt totally with the networking. It is totally purely based on the networking. So wherever we go or whatever concept we are going to talk, everything is going to be linked towards the memory and linked towards the process. So this entire illustration, what we are going to call here as address space. This entire illustration we are going to call here as address space. And this part we are going to have a kernel, and kernel we are going to call the operating system is there. Next one we are going to call here as user space. So in user space we were mentioning there are process 0, process 1 and process 2. So here we are going to have the user programs. here we are going to have the user programs. So what we are going to illustrate here, was we can see this as a source. We are going to call this one as source, and here we are going to call here as destination. We are going to call it as destination. So the communication between the source and communication between the destination will be via the sockets. So we will be writing a socket programming to send data packets right from source to destination. So in computer networks, you will know what was the packet. So it is some byte stream or some bit stream which it is carrying some user information right from source to our destination. So how are these packets migrated from one system to another system? So those, they are going to be migrated in form of sockets right from source to destination. And how are they migrated? They are migrated with a word called as IPC. IPC stands for some inter-process communication. So in an illustration of a Unix, we'll be having a word called as PUTTY, P-U-T-T-Y, and this we are going to implement the socket programming as an interface, and via that demonstration will be done in the lab, where we can see that how data is exchanged between multiple nodes or multiple computers using these sockets. So there we will use this word called as PUTTY. And second thing, while doing this network, now we are going to say we will be having HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, yes, that is for security version or secure version. So when we are going to use an email, you will be getting HTTPS. When we are browsing a regular website, so we will be having a HTTP. So regular website. If we are opening a regular website, we will be using HTTP. When we are going to use an email, then we are going to have this HTTPS. Similarly, we want to transfer a file from one location to another location. We will be calling it as FTP, File Transfer Protocol. We will be having a file transfer protocol. Next, we will be having some telnet, where exchange of information is going to be between multiple networks. Excuse me. So all these are going to be happen via this network. That too, we are going to have network communication. Then we are going to say it is internet. Now it is going to be called as intranet. So both these aspects we will be deriving with this networking, and we are going to have this sockets to be moved from source to destination. So now you can see this architecture here. We are going to call it as user space, and we are going to call it as kernel space. So while doing this, we will be working with this file system. We are working with a file system, and file system is going to have, or is going to give some, it is going to say, one second. So 565, 5C5, 517 and 5BNA, you will not get control of the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint materials are already posted in the Unit 3 in my this same OS class. So you can see those file locations, etc. if you want need the PowerPoint. And similarly, if you want my explanation, you can listen. If not, you can quit. Doesn't matter. So now we are going to have this we are going to have this file system, and file system, it is going to maintain the files, and it is having directory location. It is going to have some directory location, and this directory location we are going to say it is with C drive, nor it is going to be E drive. This one was with Windows. But as far as Unix is going to concern, we are going to have inode structure. We are going to have double super node. We are going to have double node. Nor we are going to have triple node. So, we'll be having a inode structure in the Unix operating system to represent a directory structure. To represent a directory structure, we are going to have this Unix operating system. So it can be super node, it can be double node, nor it can be triple node. And similarly, we are going to have a file directory structure in as far as Windows is going to be concerned. We organize the things in C drive and D drive, and it is going to follow the tree structure. It is going to work on tree structure, nor it is going to have some hierarchical way. That is regarding the file system, what we are going to do. So file system, we can make a read operation, nor we can make a write operation. So we are going to use this disks that can be some secondary storage, nor it can be some external storage. So when I am going to say it is a storage structure, so the hard disk, what we are going to say, and if it is external, we are going to call here as some pen drive or some flash drive, etc. So those we are going to call here as a secondary storage content. So the temporary elements, they are going to be put up in the buffer cache. So those whenever the system is going to be done and it is operated, at that time the buffer cache is going to be happen. So you can see up these terminal devices. So terminal devices, they are only some cathode ray tubes, nor they are going to be called it as monitors and keyboard. So only these we are going to call it as terminals. So either a cathode ray tube, nor the monitor, we are going to assume here as terminals, and they can be operated and they are going to be there at the terminal devices. So again, we are going to call this system as bottleneck, and when it is going to be bottleneck, we will be having centralized resources, that is CPU and memory has to be shared. So only the terminals, they are going to be cathode ray tube, nor a monitor, and the CPU nor the memory, it has to be shared by multiple processes. So that's why we are going to say these are going to be lined up. So that is job 1, job 2 and job 3. So those they are going to be lined up and they are processed one after the other. So now you can see this. These are the special directory commands. So we will be having all the exe files, that is in binary file. Similarly, if we are going to work with IO devices, we are going to use the DEV, and the miscellaneous files are going to be placed in this etc, and the general library files, Unix library files, they are going to be part of LIB, and user directories, they are going to be represented with the USR. So user directories, they are represented with USR. So that is how a file system is going to be taken up. So the implementation of a file system, it can be some cyclic, nor it can be some acyclic. So here you can see a tree structure. You can see a tree structure here, and now here you can see a graph structure here. So a file system, now it is represented either in a tree structure model or a graph structure model. So before linking of the files, and this one we are going to call it as after linking of the files. A list is going to be given, and we are going to have this some index location. So some index location is going to be taken, and that is what we are going to call here as a linking procedure. So the common files, binary, DEV, etc., that is miscellaneous files, the temporary files, the user files, and the general library of Unix file system, they are going to be in a node called as inode structure. So all of them, they are going to be represented in inode in the file system. So this one we are going to say total hard disk content. This one we are going to call it as total hard disk content. And second, we are going to have this part. So this one we can write, instead of diskette, we can write it as pen drive. Or we can say it is external hard disk. External hard disk. So this one we are going to call it as before mounting, and now you can see a tree structure is going to happen. A acyclic. A acyclic structure is going to happen. This one we are going to call it as root node. This one we are going to call it as root node, and this is the pen drive, you can say, and this one we are going to say actual storage structure, we can assume. So this is the part where a file system, it is going to maintain an actual file system, and this one we are going to call it as pen drive, etc. So these words you can call it as a directory, and these we are going to call here as files. So when we are going to put it in a rounded way, nor when we can going to write it in a rectangular way. So the general files we are going to represent it in a rounded way. The files, the directory structure, we are going to represent it in rectangular or square. The next one we can assume will be the locking of a files. The next one we can assume are the locking of a files. So we can see that process A is going to have a shared lock. So when we are going to call it as shared lock, then we can make a read operation. If we are going to call it as an exclusive lock, then we are going to make a write operation. If we are going to make a exclusive lock, then we can assume it as a write operation. When we are going to call it as shared, then we say it is a read-only operation. So this one, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. So we say process A is going to have it. Now we can say there is a overlap. Here. So if I can say A and B and common are 3 and 4. Similarly, if I am going to say another process, C is there. So now you can see process A, process B, and process C. So those, they are going to have some shared locks. And this two elements, so process 6 and 7, there is a overlap between A and B. And then again we can see this process 6 and 7, we can say overlap between process A, process B, and process C content. And this one, 2 and 3, this is between A and C. And this one we can assume 4 and 5, they are between A and B. So the locking was some primitives, they are going to have some read operation which are going to be in a part of a shared lock. So again, when there is a shared lock, I have to recapture you the basic concepts again. So I can say there is a critical section, and critical section, it is going to have some mutex and mutual exclusion, it is going to have some wait, and then mutex, it is going to have a signal process. So wait and signal we are going to call here as semaphores. So here we say acquire the lock, and here we are going to call it as release the lock. So here the critical section, we are going to have the shared content. So in the critical section, we are going to note down the words of accessing between acquiring the locks, nor they are going to be accessed with the releasing the locks. So the same thing I can show you here via the system calls or system instructions. So FD is some variable, a file description variable, which it is going to be part of a file management. So we are going to create a file and naming of a file, and then we are going to make it as a mode here. So what is the mode we are going to make? Whether it is read-write mode, it is a read mode, or whether it is read-write mode. So we will be giving a mode option here. So to move in what access it is going to take it up. So open a file for reading and writing or both. So opening is a process. Similarly, you open, then FD, we are going to say opening a file and closing a file. So the best thing you have studied in C language. In C, we are going to have files. So in file, we can open a file, we can close a file, we can read a file, we can write to a file. So that is what we are going to mention here. Reading of a file, writing of a file, and we are going to say putting a temporary storage here. We are going to use a temporary storage location, and that temporary storage location we are going to have a buffer, and we are going to say number of bytes, number of data bytes what we want to transfer from one location to another location. So we say it is first one we are going to say create a file, and after creating a file then we are going to open a file, and then we can make a read operation, we can make a write operation. Then we are going to say after opening a file, then we are going to make it as a close operation. So this is the sequence of steps what we are going to work with the files. Okay, now we will be having IPC, inter-process communication, and in inter-process communication we are going to have some pipeline. We will be having some pipeline, and we are going to have some shared memory. One, we are going to have a pipelining concept, and we are going to have a shared memory. So in pipelining concept, we mentioned earlier, so I am having process P1 and process P2. So we establish a socket here. We establish a socket. So this is only between P1 and P2. But how is this justified towards the shared memory? How is this justified towards the shared memory? So I'm having process P1, I'm going to have process P2, I'm going to have process P3, and all of them, they are going to have some shared memory here, and this shared memory can be used by process V1, can be used by process P2, and can be used by process P3. So there is a two-way communication. There is a two-way communication between all these processes. So and similarly, they can exchange information by putting the things in a common. So inter-process communication, if it is between two process, only two process, then we are going to call here as pipelining, and that is where it is created with a command s is equals to pipe of address of file descriptor with 0. So we are going to get the status. Status is nothing but how many number of bytes has been transferred, and what is the file status, whether the buffer is full or not, whether the buffer is empty or not. So buffer is full nor buffer is empty or not. We need to get the status, because when we are going to work with readers writer problem, or when we are working with producer consumer problem, producer will produce the item until the buffer is full. So when the buffer is full, then it is going to signal, therefore consumer will come and consume the items until the buffer is vacant. So that is how a relationship between buffer full and buffer empty has been taken up in the producer consumer problem. So the bounded buffer problem. So that is taken up here for this fstat, etc. So this is what the file system commands is going to take place, and after that we are going to have this. We will be having the directory management commands. We are going to have the directory management commands. So in this directory management commands, that is nothing but creating a subdirectory and all. So we will be having a directory management. So for that, what are the system calls? What are the commands? So we can say mkdir. Mkdir is nothing but creating of a directory. rmdir. So that is nothing but removing of a directory. We can just remove the directory. Next one, we are going to link the old path to the new path. So we will be having this create a link to a existing. So new path, now it is going to be moved to the old path. So we are going to call it as linking. Similarly, we are going to say unlinking. So similarly, if we move from one directory to another directory, that what we are going to say chdir, that is change the directory structure. So opening of a directory and closing of a directory. So we are directly just making double click on it, opening. Then we are minimizing, or we are closing that with the X mark. So we are accustomed to the user interface with this graphical user interface. But earlier in second generation and third generation, there is no GUI. At that time, people used to type commands manually from the operating system shell, and they used to communicate with the thing, and that too it was monochrome monitors, etc. Everything is done via only the system calls, because the operating system understands the process to be done only in the system calls. Further, the communication either to a file structure, either to a directory structure, either to a process management, either to a memory management, in what aspect it is, all the things it is going to be taken up only in this system calls itself. So that is all for today. So we have taken up in today's class, we taken up the Unix memory management. After Unix memory management, then we were talking about socket programming. So in socket programming, we have source party and destination party. So the communication is in form of packets, and packets are put in a socket to move from source to destination. That is what we mentioned for networking. Next one, we have address space, user space, where users are going to have the content and they get to exclude the data, that too in the kernel space. So file management, it is going to give some access over the files. We will be looking at the commands in the next slide that we have already discussed. And similarly, we are having some disk drivers. So if I purchase some new external hard disk, obviously they give me to install the hard disk some drivers. So if I am going to install the driver only, then only I can communicate with the CPU. As simple as such, if I purchase a mouse, they will give me a CD. I have to install that CD, then only I can use that mouse to my laptop. So anything, if I'm going to purchase a webcam, so if I want to put a webcam to my laptop, so directly linking the USB and putting the webcam, it doesn't work. You need to get drivers. Drivers via internet people are downloading. Nor they at the purchasing itself they will give one CD. So you have to install that CD, and after installing, then only the hardware component is going to link to the laptop. So how is this, who is this maintaining? Yes, it is maintained by the operating system. And how is this happening? It is happening with the drivers. It is happening with the drivers. So either to install a pen drive, or either to install a keyboard or a mouse or a projector or printer, a scanner, whatever it is, everything they need some drivers. So with the driver only, people can install the hardware components and tell to the operating system, these are the contents which are linked to my laptop. So some file system commands, the default files you can see bin, GEB, etc, user and lab. So open your Android mobile phone, and in that Android mobile phone also you can see what are the different directories in the Android mobile phone. There also you can see DEB, you can see BIL. So they are the default directories which are going to happen. And see this, when I'm going to have my hard disk, then I can link my external hard disk. So there, if before I'm going to link it, I call it as before mounting. And if I'm going to attach a pen drive to my system, that is nothing but a technical word. We are going to call it as mounting. So when there is a mounting happen, what file system structure happens inside? The same type of file system is migrated to that secondary storage device also. So locking primitives, again we are going to have some shade, so it can be between within the process or between the multiple process we are mentioning. And there are some system calls which are working with file management, that is creating of a file, opening of a file, closing of a file, reading of a file, and writing of a file. Similarly, there are commands which are taking care of the directory structure, that is to create a directory, to remove a directory, to link to a directory, and to change the path of a directory. So such commands, they are all supporting to see that the operating system is going to be accustomed with the user jobs, and the user will feel very efficient to get his task done. So this is all for today in this Unix case study. Thank you, and thank you for joining. Stop recording.